Hey everyone, welcome back. In this episode, it's time to dig into these fenders. We're going to start with the driver's side fender. Let me show you what we're in for. Okay, before we jump into the areas that we have to repair, I did spend probably a good couple hours getting all of that old undercoating off. That was pretty thick on there, a quarter-inch thick, I would say, in most places. So a combination of the airfoil and some heat and a putty knife got that all off. You can see it was completely covered all inside the fender area except for here where the inner splash shield was located. And also went through and took off all the undercoating on both sides of the car under the fender well areas here. So that's all cleaned up and ready to go. Again, this will all be media blasted, but before that media blast could happen, all of that undercoating needed to come off. This will make for a pretty quick job now with the media blast, and it won't generate too much heat in the panels because of the blast trying to get rid of that undercoating. So that's a necessary step and many hours consumed, maybe a few beers. That is done. Now onto the repair areas. We actually have 4 repairs that we have to make to this fender. We've got one right here where we're going to have to come down here, through here to good metal and back. This inner brace or bracket we think is good. So it's just a new piece here, We'll see once that's off, once I get this cleaned up, to know if the inner bracket is in fact good enough to weld to or not. But that's one repair. The second repair, slightly more complex. We've got a section here through here actually that will need to get replaced as one piece. And then a second piece here with an interesting bend in it. You can see how narrow the bend is there to how wide it gets to there. So that will be an interesting piece. 2 pieces, I think, to repair that. That's definitely more complex, but doable. You can see that in some areas I've just used the little mini sandblaster I've got over there just to clean up the area to see what I was in for. That's why you can see that it's down to bare metal in some places. Now for the third repair, where the inner splash shield, let me flip it over, where the inner splash shield ran up alongside here, there, it created an area here where moisture collected and rusted through. That will be an interesting repair because we've got a bend here. I think we won't have to worry too much about this area right here. But we're going to need a piece with a bend in it, something like that. Shouldn't be too bad, but got to make sure we get that bend right. And then for what will be probably the most complex repair is we've got this section here of this dog leg that needs to get cut out and repaired. We've got a lip that we have to create here. I've done that before. I'll show you how we get after that. And then on the inside, the structure here, the brace needs some repair as well. So you can see that this area probably all through here is gone, at least there and of course here. And then we'll have to create this piece here. So that's going to be a complex repair to get after. Okay, let's mark out the area that we're going to cut out. This looks like good metal here. The end of the bracket is there. I'm thinking that we're going to need to come back to here. And I think I've got good metal here. Let's start with that and see how we do. Okay, we got that piece out. Unfortunately, some of the video got cut off there, but what I ended up doing was drilling a couple holes that allowed me to get the cutoff saw in here. So I had to damage or cut into the bracket behind it, but it's just collateral damage in order to get this piece out. So with the cutoff saw, I got that piece out, and the same thing happened here. And then with the spot welds drilled out, minus this one, which I missed, I just used the air chisel to get this piece pried up, and then a bit of wire wheeling. And it looks like this piece, although is scaly, I think is fine for us to work with. I don't think that I need to repair that. I am going to do a bit more wire wheeling. We'll rust treat this. We'll, of course, use weld through primer on it before we put our new piece in. The new piece would have, 2 or 3, maybe 4 spot welds along here, and it will have an arc that comes out like this. In fact, you can see here where the scaly rust is. That's the line of that other piece. So it's pretty easy to make a new piece. If I was worried about this, I could have created a template first before cutting out the original piece to make sure I got it just right. But I've got the other Fender as a guide, and B, it's a pretty straightforward piece. It's not complex. It just comes out like this and rounds over. It did have a hole in it right here. I'm not going to worry about that hole. It was probably a 5/8 hole that came in the stamped piece of metal of the outer skin. Not going to worry about that. We'll just make it a solid piece all the way here and then round it out. So it's time to get a paper pattern going, and we'll get that cut and start to weld her up. So I was going to use a paper pattern to make that piece, but I realized that I still had this intact, which is the original piece that came out, minus 3/4 of an inch at the end of it. So I just flattened it out, and that is our template. So I'll use this to create a paper template. We'll come out further and round this over, and yeah, we'll use this to make a paper template. Let's go do that and do a test fit. Okay, just a really simple paper pattern here again, just based on the other piece. I made it a little long, so we need to chop off, really, I guess, the original line there. That's it. You can see I've got the same curve in here, and in fact, I drew it in by hand, but it does match up with the original rust mark there. So that's our paper pattern. We need that in steel, and we'll cut to fit. Let's get to it. Okay, got the piece in there. Seems to fit pretty good, but it does need a little off right here, and I need to take some off here, so I need my marker. I like how this works out. I'm gonna have to take some off here too, so actually I need my ruler. Need to take that off there, and a little off here. Take a little off here too. And from this point on, I'll take some off. So what I do is use the marker on my fingertips just to create this black edge. And that's what I use as a guide so I don't take off too much material. Once the marker is ground off, I know that I'm ready. Okay, I like that. There's a little more that I want off right here. And a little more right there. And I'm going to want plug welds, like one right here, one right here maybe, right here, right there. That should be plenty. And a little off right here. Okay, let's do that and come back. That's it. Well, maybe just a little bit off that point right there. So remember, I'm going to be a butt weld all along the outer edge here. And so I want an 1/8 inch gap, make sure I got good penetration because I want to be able to grind that weld right off. And so I think I've got that now all along all edges. This piece is trickier, so you really can't do a cut and butt effectively because this bracket needs to stay intact. So that's why I took some time there. We've got our gap here. That will have to be ground down, and then we'll have our 4 plug welds, which seems a little excessive. I might take one out, but anyway, I think that's our piece. So now what we have to do is I want to treat the rust that's behind here. I've got some rust treatment that we're going to put on that. Then we'll weld through primer both pieces. I'll do my drill holes on this piece so I can do the plug welds. Let it all dry, and we'll come back and tack it up. Okay, first thing is just a bit of brake clean to get this as clean as it can be. By the way, might have noticed or you can see right now that to get this piece cut off, I did have to cut through this bracket. So what I'll do is once this piece is all welded and ground and happy, I'm going to come in from the back side and I'll run a bead up the inside of this cut here to make sure this bracket has the strength it needs. And I won't even probably bother grinding that down because it's in the back side and no one will ever see it, and that will give it maximum strength. So just in case you're wondering about that. And I don't know if I said it earlier, the reason why I went further than my original plan was to avoid having to cut this bracket. If I would have cut it off here like I originally planned, then I would have had to deal with this bracket. By going out a little further, I avoided this bracket that's inside, that is this piece. It's maintained its integrity, and this piece just now comes out wider. So happy with how that all turned out. Just brake clean again. Okay, now compressed air. Okay. That's it. That's good enough. Let that dry and we'll come back. Okay, the rust fix is on there. You can see where it's turning black. That's where the rust really was bad. And so that needs to set up. In fact, it's technically supposed to sit there for 24 hours before we put our primer on. So we're going to let it sit for at least longer than it is right now because it's still tacky. And let's move over to this piece over here. Let's get busy on this. So I think what we're going to do is two pieces on this one. We'll do, you can see the rust is as far as here. And looking on the back side, yeah, we want to go out to probably here. And we're going to run a cut all the way through here. And then there is a bracket behind this piece. Again, the bracket starts about right here, roughly. And we've got a spot weld right here. And so I'm thinking that we can probably, given the rust here, come down. If I do it there, then I think I can use my cutoff wheel and get that. And then we're going to have to do a cut right on this edge here. And that can get a little dicey, but I think that's what we're going to try and do. We've got to at least come this far because of this rust, and we might as well go the distance. That's probably our piece. So we'll start with that. Once that is welded in, of course we won't weld it to this piece, but we'll weld it in here. Once that's in place, then we can turn our attention to this piece, which will have this irregular bend here, and we'll have to come out similarly, probably out to here and over, but we'll do that later. So I'm going to start by cutting that out, and we'll go from there. Okay, that piece is cut out. You can see it's pretty scaly behind there. Um, I know we've got clean metal here, so we're good to weld this up. I know we got clean metal here. This all looks good on all sides here, so happy with this. We just need to clean up the edges, get all the paint off, and then this here, need to do the same thing. So I'll wire wheel that a bit more, and then we'll put that same rust fix on, and we're going to let that sit. Before we do that, we will cut a new piece, and we don't need a paper pattern because we'll just use this. So I'm going to go do this real quick. I'm going to get this cut out of 18 gauge. We'll get that new piece prepped. This goes that way, sorry, that way. We'll get that new piece prepped. We'll do a plug weld on that bracket like there was before. And with that piece prepped, we'll paint the back with weld through primer, and we'll get the rust fix on that so it can sit. Let's go. Okay, we've got our piece. It's very close. I'm going to start by trimming the ends. We want our 1/8 inch gap, so we're going to get some off this side, and we want some here. Let's get that right, and then we'll move on to this. It has to sit like that. So let's do that. Happy with that, just because it's going to butt right up against there nice and flat. But we've got to get this. Start with the ends. Okay. With that the way it is right there, we've got an 1/8 inch gap all the way around. And that's what we're going to do. We'll do a butt weld all along the outer edge. We'll do a plug weld right here. And that's it. That piece is ready to go. So, I'm going to get this surface clean. We get this drilled with a plug weld. We're going to put that, let's see, gas right about here. And get this treated. And we'll be good. Okay, just going to clean this surface. And dry it off. Hopefully. Okay, I'm going to mask this off because I don't want that rust fix on the areas that I'm going to weld on. The other side, I should have done the same. I'll just help with cleanup later, or prep later, I should say. Okay, let's get that. You could argue I'm going too far with this. That's okay. Put your thoughts down in the comments there. Okay, let that sit, just like the other side, and then we'll be good to go. Okay, I've got that patch over there with the plug weld, and it's got weld through primer over it. It's drying. I've got the rust fix on this, and it's drying. And before we can do anything more here, this has to dry. And so I don't want to move on to the other patches yet. I'd like to stay in this area of the fender, this and the other patch that we've done previously. So I thought while this is drying, we could start to work on bending this piece here. It's going to be complex. I'm probably going to get it wrong the first time. So let's try and work on that while this is doing its thing. From what I can tell, I need to come out to get clean metal. I need to come out to about here. And likewise, about here. Yeah. So, and I need to come up to probably here. And so I need a piece that runs that's not very straight. I'll do that one again. I'm gonna wipe off that top line and draw that again. All right, let's do that properly this time. Okay. I think we can cut that out without disturbing anything else. I think. So I think all we need to do that with is the combination of the body saw and the cutoff wheel. Let's get to it. There we go. That's our piece that we've got to make. Okay, so I've cut this piece of steel out, 18 gauge, just to do our first piece here to see if this is going to work. We're probably going to do this more than once. This is, of course, how it goes on the fender. You can see that the radius of that one is much smaller than the radius of that one. So that'll be the more complex piece to do. What we can start with, though, is this straight bend here, right across there. If we start with that bend, then we can come back and measure out this distance here compared to that distance there to create an angled bend on our final. So a little tricky, but we've got to try it. So we'll do is line these pieces up. I want to have a little bit extra on this end, and I want to have a little bit extra on this end. So do something like that. And we're just going to do one straight across. Don't need to get fancy on this one. It's a 90 degree, so that helps us. Yeah. Okay. Let's bend that 90 degrees and go from there. Okay, got our two pieces. We're going to make that 90 degree bend right there. Okay, that's the first part of our bend. So that should be good. Now, we'll have to keep an eye. You see how this one here is not at 90 degrees. So, in fact, we probably bent that a little too far. Yeah, it's got to come down. Okay, no problem. We'll just do this. Get that matched up. That's pretty close. I think we can work with that. Yeah, just a little bit more. Ugh, come on. Hopefully you can see that in the camera. That is very close there. Okay, so now the tricky part. We've got really a ledge there that we could probably do this by eye. Where this one is roughly there. And this one. Okay, just eyeballed that. I think that's going to get us in the ballpark. Let's not get too crazy. We don't need to break out the micrometer. Come on now. I think that's very close to the profile we're looking for. Okay, so now the tricky part. Without a fancy break, this gets complex, but we'll do what we can here. Okay, good and strong on that one. Now, as I said, this is going to get a little dicey. I need to find the right piece of steel. Right back. Okay, kind of hoping this gives us the action that we're looking for. I don't know. That's very close. It's close. It is close. I just think I might have Not enough angle on that, maybe. I'm gonna go do a quick test fit and see how that looks. Okay, so we're very close. Very, very close. If I had to do anything different on this piece, you can see here that once I get that lined up, this is very close to being correct. On this side, I don't know if you can see that in the camera. Yeah. The bend here should be a little shallower. I think we can make it work though. It's very close, and because I got 18 gauge, I can take a little material off to make up for that. So I feel like we can make this piece work. And I won't even bother cutting that off yet. I'll leave that until after I can use the grinder to cut that off, the cutoff wheel. But what I'd like to do is get a tack in here and just double check all my lines to make sure I'm happy with that bend. Get a tack there and a tack there, and we'll see if we like it. Let's get that done. I think we got her. We just got to weld her up and grind it. I'll pick you back up when that's done. Okay, all welded in, ground down. Very happy with how that turned out. The bends, I think, really turned out well with the Media Blast, epoxy prime, and just a light skim of filler. This is going to look awesome, and it's got all the strength that it needs. I've got this piece ready to go in. It's been shot with weld through primer, as has that piece. So we'll weld that in next. It's ready to go. Quite happy with how that's going to turn out, I think. The back side, I left a bit of weld in the back just because I wanted to make sure that this had plenty of strength. So it's welded flat enough, and no pinholes. Everything is solid there. This piece, again, this has all been rust fixed, and then it's got weld through primer on the back side of this, and it's ready. You can see I've got nice gaps here. It's roughly in place right there. Right there. Yeah, so nice gaps there. So just need to weld that up, grind it all down, and these two repairs, they'll be rocking. So let's get those tacked in. Okay. That is where I want this piece. I've got this line matched up there, and I've got my gap all the way around. So let's get a couple tacks in here. one. Happy with that. Can still move it if I need to, but I think I'm happy with all those gaps. And I'm flush, so I'm happy with that. Do one more here. There. That piece is tacked. So I've got to be really careful with this because if I'm not careful, get too much heat in this panel. Even though there are some complex bends, I do not want to get any warping, oil canning of this area. As I said, I got pretty good bends here, so it's not too bad. It's not like doing a door or a trunk area, but I still need to be careful. Let's go down and tack in the other piece. Okay. So you can see I drew a hole in there. We've got one plug weld that will do. Let's get this fitted in there. I think that's happy. Let's put a tack right there. Come on. I'm not getting a ground to my new piece, so that's what's going on there. I'm going to leave that one for a minute. I'm happy with still where it is, but I'm going to get a tack on this side here. I just got to make sure I'm not sitting down too far. Yeah, it is a little bit low. All right, got to be careful of that. There. Let's throw a tack on that. Now we can see we lost this one. All right. Yeah, I gotta get a pair of vice grips on that. Not only need this piece straight, but we also need it level. We don't want to create an issue that way because it'll just mean more body filler later, and we don't want that. There, you can see hopefully there. We've got still lots of gap in between the top of the fender because this has to be ground flat, so we need good penetration, which I think we'll have there. So let's tack that in. That looks like it could be hammered just a little bit. Okay, let's get a tack in there. All right, looks flush. All right, I think that's pretty good. The only thing I'm seeing is that this edge right here is a little high on the patch. this is pretty level here. So I might try to pry that up a little bit, and I can do that, I think, from the back side. Let me grab a screwdriver, see if we can pry it up a little bit. Again, it's important to get it as good a fit as you can right now, because it just creates more work later if you don't. Okay, I think if I run a tack on that now, and I can then put a bit of, I hammer that a little bit, but we gotta tack that right there. There, now it's level. That's what we need. We're level there. Let's get a tack right there. See, it's got to come up a bit in the back here. I think I can just hold that and tack it. Let me get my glove. Yeah, we need it right there. That's beautiful. I will run the cutoff wheel through there so I can get the gap that I need. Again, I want good penetration here. I want to be careful I don't put too much weld in here though, because I don't want to make it real hard on myself for grinding later. So I will weld from the back on this one, on the back side of this bend here. And I'll do really light filler in here with the weld, just to give me something to grind, but not too much. That will minimize, again, not only grinding, but the body work later with filler. Okay, I think those patches are happy. So I'll turn the camera off. I'll take, now again, I gotta, move around. That's why I've got these two pieces that are nice here. I can do a couple tacks here, move to the other side, do a couple tacks there, use the air hose, blow it off. I got to keep this cool. I don't want to create problems that I got to fix later, whether that's, more metal repair because of warpage or excessive filler. I don't want to go down that path at all. So got to be careful, but we'll take our time. That's why I'm going to turn the camera off, because I think that's going to get pretty tedious to watch, but you can see the process. I'll move around a couple tacks over there, blow it off. I'll come back after she's welded and grounded down. Okay, I just wanted to stop and show you what was happening here. I was putting this piece in this fender and working my tacks along the piece and moving around to this other patch that I was doing down here. Tack here, tack there, cooling it off with the air hose. And I had come back to this piece and was just feeling it, which is something you have to do. You got to keep checking the panel around your weld to make sure that you're not creating a problem down the road. And that's what had happened, actually. This top of the fender right here pulled in nearly 1/8 of an inch. As one or two of my tacks cooled, it drew it in. And so it had quite a bit of a depression right here. And so all I did was use the cutoff wheel to take off, I think, 3 of the tacks, Use the flat screwdriver to pry it back out, keep it straight, and then worked in my tacks again. And now the piece is straight the way it should be. This can happen, and so what's really important is to keep checking your piece as you're putting these tacks in when you're working on panels like this. If you don't, you're going to create problems later. Don't panic. Just do the simple procedure of cutting off the tacks that you've got in there and weld it back up straight. Okay, guys, so all welded up and ground down. That one is done. Looks great, strong, no pinholes, beautiful. This one as well. The complex bend that we had to do there seemed like it turned out okay. And again, this is all welded up. It's ground down, as you can see, and no pinholes. It's really good strength, and very happy with how that turned out. 2 repairs done in this Fender, and 2 to go. Guys, it's beer time. We're going to wrap this episode up. Come back next Friday, and we're going to tackle the last 2 areas in this Fender. Don't forget to throw a like and subscribe. Cheers.